All right, let's get back at it, guys. So, in the last episode, we started doing the solar panels and we started doing the accumulators. And finally got that all finished. In the meantime, I was filling in some sand and stuff like that. So, let me show you what we got here. There it is. It's all completely filled in. Now, one of the things that I did is before it was 3 by 4. Well, 3 by 4 is not a square. That bugged me. So I made it 4 by 4. So now we have a square. And like I said, we're never going to touch this. We're never going to mess with it. So we wanted it up and out of our way. That's also why we have the blank spot in the middle. There are no radar there. So we can't see the middle. Doesn't matter. I don't care. We're never going to have to deal with this. I just wanted to fill it completely in. So what do we got? Well, we are, at this point, we have 66,000 accumulators, 15,000 large solar panels, and almost 3,000 small solar panels. Now that's going to give us 1.8 gigawatts of potential power and 334 gigajoules of charged power, right? But as you notice, we are not connected to the system yet. All right. Now, if we look down here, this is what, 1.6 did I say? If we look at our power plant is capable of producing, well, heck, we don't have to do that. We can just go right up here, of 400 megawatts, right? So about a quarter, let's see, 4 is 8, 8 is 16. Yeah, about a quarter of what we are going to potentially be able to output now. Now, the other thing you'll notice, we don't have any accumulators in our current system. We've just been running off of the steam plant. So we are going to hook this in. Now, in keeping with my whole philosophy of, multiple connections, redundancy, etc., we're going to go over here. We're going to kind of go in the middle just because I'm crazy that way. And we're going to hook it up here. And we're going to hook it up on the other side. Just, to have two connections, right? In case one of them gets broken or whatever the case may be. We'll get to this train in a minute. So we'll just go down here a little ways, about the middle of this patch, give or take. And we'll hook in a second one. And that's close enough. All right, so there we go. So now we're hooked into the grid. So now let's look. You notice it has completely turned off our steam engines because it's daytime. And we're making so much power with our large array of panels and our small panels that the steam plant no longer needs to run. And that is a good thing, right? That's a good thing because now we're not using up the fuel. If this was vanilla, we wouldn't be producing pollution to attract the biters and stuff. The big thing is right now we're not using this fuel. So there's a good thing. But if we watch this, as nighttime approaches, what's going to happen is our solar panel production is going to go down and our power plant production is going to start to come up. And we're never going to touch our accumulators, our stored energy. What's the point of having them if we're not touching it, right? So let's take a look. See, it started to change. We're starting to see our power come up in our plant and our power go down in our panels. Eventually, we're not going to make anything with our panels. And once that happens, everything's going to be reliant off the plant. We're still not touching all these accumulators. So what's the point of having them, right? Well, that's what we're going to go take care of next. We are going to do what is called an S-R Latch. Pretty common in Factorio. A lot of people use them, and you will see them a fair bit. There's a bunch of tutorials on them on YouTube. If we go here, we're going to add station. We're going to go to build, right? And that should take us back to the plant. All right. Now, what we're going to do is before we get to the plant, when we get down by the power station, we'll just kill this at that point. So we get over here. And what an S-R latch is S and R stand for set and reset. And an S-R latch is a bistable logic circuit. In other words, it has two stable positions, basically on and off. It will stay in one or the other of them until something gives it a push and changes it to the other one. And what we're going to use that for is to turn our power plant on and off, kind of forcing it to work off the accumulators. In fact, it probably, given the fact that we have so many accumulators, will never turn on. All right, we're down here by it. Let's go ahead and get out of the train. So now what we got is we're down here at the power plant, and if we look, in keeping with my multiple connection kind of rule, we've got 3 connections going to those power plants. But we're going to break that rule. We're going to come down here and we're going to disconnect this line and we're going to go up here and we're going to disconnect this line, because now this power plant is just kind of redundant backup, right? We don't need it. So what we're going to do is we're going to put in a little handy dandy switch. So let's put our switch, let's put it here. Now you notice I took that switch out, our power plant died. But we still have power because we're still running off the solar panels, right? So we put down our switch and let's put it right there. All right. And then we're going to take copper cable and we're going to go from our pole to our switch and then from our switch to our pole. All right. So now we have this switch that we can open and close. Great. So now we can hook the power plant up to it and what have you. One of the nice things about this is you can see that switch. Let's move away from it a little bit. You can see that switch from the map view. Not only can you see that switch from the map view, but you can interact with it from the map view. So you can open this, close this switch from all the way over on the other side of the map if you wanted to. All right. The other part of it is, if we look at the map view, you'll notice that the lines are green right now. If we go in here and we open the switch and we go back out to map view, notice they're red. So you'll be able to tell on the map whether they're open and closed because the red and the green, right? If it's green, that means that switch is closed. If it's red, that means that switch is open. All right, that's great. But how does that help us, Bob? Well, that's where an S-R latch comes in handy. What we're going to do is we are going to add an accumulator to the system down here. Now, as you guys know, every accumulator in the system is listed as being in the system. So they all, once it's charged when you first put it down, all accumulators, all in the system, if they're all hooked up, all have the same level of charge, right? They charge and discharge at the same time. So what we can do, we're going to put a pole up here. And we're going to take our copper and we're going to shift click on the, said we're going to shift click on the pole, right? That's going to disconnect the wire from the pole, right? Not right click, shift click. So now if I take a red wire and I hook up from my accumulator to my pole, I can now hover over the pole and I can see that this accumulator is at is outputting a signal that says A100. Now A, you can designate it to be anything you want, right? Mode of operation though, read level of charge from 0 to 100. Well, that's percent, right? So at 10% it would read 10, and 100% it would read 100. So we can look at that now. That accumulator is charged to 100%. All right. What I'm going to do, just to avoid any possible combinations of down the road using this signal again, we're going to change that signal. So I'm going to change it to accumulator, right? Because the only thing using it should be the accumulators. That's going to designate whatever's coming out of there as accumulator, right? So we can have multiple things on this channel, but the only one putting out an accumulator signal is the accumulator. All right. So, as a matter of fact, let's do this and I'll show you what I mean. Let's say we have 3 of them on here. Oops, that one's not close enough. Okay, two is plenty. I guess. All right, once you've designated 1. No, maybe not. Maybe if we do this, oops. Maybe you have to have it hooked up to be able to get the ability to do a signal. All right, so I could change this to anything else, right? So now I have an accumulator and I have an N. They're both accumulators, but I've changed the signal to different, right? So you're going to see all the different signals on here. All right, so what are we getting at? What I'm going to do is I'm going to take 2 things. I'm going to take a decider combinator and an arithmetic combinator. Okay, and we're going to put these down. And I'm gonna point the arrows in that direction. It really doesn't matter, but it's going to cross up our wires if we go the other way. So we're going to put 1 down of each of them. And I'm going to leave a space between them. Although you don't need to, I'm going to leave it there so that we can see what the hell we're doing. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come out of the accumulator and I'm going to come into the decider combinator. All right. Then in the decider combinator, now we're coming out, like I said, with an accumulator signal. I'm going to say accumulator, right? And I'm going to say if the accumulator is less than, let's say 10%, right? I want you to output a signal. Again, I'm going to call it accumulator because we want to keep consistent here, and we want to keep consistent for a reason. It'll become clear in a minute. We're going to output a 1. All right. So if this goes to less than 10%, it's going to send it here. Less than 10%, it's going to output a signal of 1. All right. So then we're going to take that signal and we're going to put that signal into an arithmetic combinator. All right, and we're going to take that input signal, again, accumulator. We're going to multiply. We got all of these arithmetic functions. We're going to do multiply, and we're going to say multiply that incoming signal by negative 25. All right, so that means the 1 coming in times negative 25 is going to give us negative 25. We're going to take that signal and go back and say accumulator. So now that's going to output a signal that says negative 25 accumulator. If we take that out of there and we come back into our decider combinator, right? It's going to take that accumulator signal that we've got coming from the accumulator and the signal we've got coming from the arithmetic combinator. Add the two of them together, and that's going to give us this output. So if our output is 1, it's going to go up, be multiplied by negative 25, and come back. Well, the only way this can be true or put this out is if this is less than 10, right? So let's say it's 9, and then that's going to come up, and then that's going to come back, and it's going to be the negative 25. Well, that's going to reinforce the fact that this is less than 10, right? So it's going to keep that 1. But let's say that the signal coming from the accumulator is, let's say, 50. So 50 going out, coming back in, and negative 25 is going to be a total of 25, which is not going to be less than 1. It's now going to be greater than 1. This one signal suddenly is going to go away, right? So you're not going to get your 1 input here, which means you're not going to get your negative 25 coming back, which is going to reinforce the fact that this 50 is the proper signal, right? So what we can do is we can take that signal, right, and we can then output it from here over to the switch, right? So we don't have a 1 coming out because it's not less than 10, right? Because we've got 100% charge. So that's going to not put out that 1 signal. If we're not getting the 1 signal, and that is that, and we're going to say equals 1, right? If we're not getting that 1 signal, this switch is not going to be closed. So the only time this switch will close and activate the power plant is if our accumulator is less than 10%. So the only time this will now turn on is when our accumulators get low, right? Day or night, what it's going to do is it's going to now force the system to use the power out of the accumulator as opposed to switching back and forth between the generator when the sun goes down and the power out of here goes down. So now you'll notice the generators are no longer in the system because they're not hooked up. And as the sun goes down, you will notice that this power will start to go down and the power usage out of the accumulators will start to pick up. It may take a minute. I think we're pretty close to sun. Yeah, the lights are coming on. So we're pretty close to where it's going to flick over. Our output power is going to go down. Our production is going to come up. So now we're starting to use our accumulators, right? Now, in the event that these went all the way down to 10%, which they're not going to, we're going to barely see this move throughout the space of the night. Then that switch would close, the generators would come on, and they would add power to the system. Not going to happen right now. Now, that will happen when we do what we plan on doing next, which is to increase our mud and increase our slag production, because we're gonna increase these greatly, and that's going to start to affect our power. Now, not only can we use this to turn on and turn off our generators, but we can also use this same idea and use these switches to turn on and turn off different parts of our power plant. So like once we build these on a large scale, and by large scale I mean we're putting them in one of these squares. If that starts drawing the power too low and this needs to recharge, we can use this same system by monitoring our accumulator to then cut power to that slag production. Turn it off. It won't be a load on the system anymore. Our stuff can recharge, etc., etc. But we're going to theoretically build big enough of a power plant to cover all of that. I don't know what our power consumption is going to be when we get up there and we get this slag, producing as big as we are. But certainly we can use this system to regulate that. So that is the plan. We've got our power installed and what have you. And see, this never dropped anywhere appreciably down to where we had to start worrying about it. All right. So that's going to be a way for us to start to save fuel. We're going to use our solar panels. We're going to use our accumulators. We no longer have to worry about our power, right? So we'll go back up here to solar construction. And we'll look at where we're headed next. So let's go on up here and look at this other train that I put up here. I hope that kind of convoluted brief description helped you guys out on the S-R Latch. If not, I actually have a separate tutorial on it somewhere in my playlists. But there are a ton of other videos out there that really go into depth and explain how it works and what have you on YouTube. So just kind of look it up. It is a very easy setup once you understand how to do it. But it is an extremely powerful tool to be using in Factorio. It will definitely make your life a lot easier managing solar, managing power plants at the very least. And like I say, you can use it to turn off sections of your plant if you're having problems with load. Whoa, where are you going? Why did you... Oh! Because I didn't put a wait condition. So it sped right through it and kept right on going while I'm sitting here talking. We're gonna get off of the train and we're gonna get rid of the train. That way it can't run away from us. So yeah, so that's a good way to regulate things. The other place that it really kind of comes in handy is once you get over into doing nuclear power. Because with nuclear plants, whether you're using the power or not, they continue to burn fuel because that's, the nature of nuclear. You don't start it up, shut it down, start it up, shut it down. You start it up and it stays. So it's going to continue to draw fuel regardless of how much power you're using. So you can actually use that system to regulate your loads to your power plant to keep them maxed out. You can have like a little generator system for those times when you need the extra power. You can have it kick on, and then when the power's low, you can have it kick off, so that you're balancing the system out to where your nuclear power plant is always running at maximum capacity. And you can add steam plants to take that peak out whenever you need the extra little bit of oomph. But your what they call base load will always stay the same. So if you design a power plant, a nuclear plant, to do, say, 16 gigawatts of power, right? And you design your base to be right at that edge of 16 gigawatts, but sometimes it goes to 18 gigawatts. You can have a steam plant take up that extra 2 gigawatts and have the the nuke plant run the 16 constantly, and then add and subtract the other 2 gigawatts as you need it. And when you don't need it, have it shut down that plant. Because otherwise, if they're both hooked to the system and there's no way of regulating it, they will both share the power equally. So you can kind of take away from that and have your most efficient usage of your nuke plant. So what we have here is I have grabbed what I think is everything we're going to need to start to build a great big mud plant. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to build a great big mud plant. And the reason we're doing the mud plant is so that we can do geodes, so that we can start pumping a bunch of geodes over here in order to support our material production of our metal ores. We're not making enough geodes in the little plant that we've got over here. We're going to increase this by a considerable amount. So that's the plan. That's where we stand. I don't think we're going to do it in this episode. It's already been close to a half an hour. If I get started on that, it's going to take a full hour to get it set up. So this is going to be a short episode, basically just covering this new addition to our power plant. So now we've got our switch in. Where's our plant? There's our plant. We got our switch in. It's being controlled by our logic here, and we can just let that go, and this will turn on and off as we need it, which we probably won't for a long time. If you got any questions on this, by all means, put them in the comments section. You can keep in mind, you can change these two numbers. So rather than being 10 and 25, you could make them 5 and 50, what have you. You kind of play back and forth with these to find the right balance. In the space exploration playthrough that I did, I had 3 different power plants, and along with the nuke plant, and I had these set at 3 different setting levels. So they would cascade on and they would cascade off as they needed more and more and more. I didn't set them all to the same numbers. So it's something to play with. It's something to look into, guys. All right. I will see you in the next episode where we start making a whole bunch of mud pies. All right. You guys take care. Talk to you later. Bye.